Hi, I'm Darren from Inflation Support Services and here to talk about what is EFT tapping and how I can help you with EFT tapping one-on-one. Emotional freedom techniques, otherwise known as EFT tapping. A little history into EFT tapping, as it wasn't always known as EFT tapping. EFT tapping incorporates acupuncture, which comes from traditional Chinese medicine. In acupuncture, there are different meridian lines that flow throughout our body, and along these lines there are certain points. Acupuncturists would apply needles, but in EFT tapping, we tap along these points to help that flow of energy. But EFT tapping was first known as thought field therapy, created by the American psychologist Dr. Roger Callahan back in the 1980s. Dr. Roger Callahan was working with a patient by the name of Mary, who had a water phobia. He had tried many different psychological interventions, but was not having much forward momentum with Mary. So he turned towards acupuncture and combined both the traditional Chinese use of acupuncture and the psychological interventions, combining it into thought field therapy. He applied this with Mary, who actually started to overcome her subconscious fear of her water phobia. She ran out to a pool, dipped her toes in, Dr. Roger Callahan running behind a bit worried, but she had started to make her first steps towards overcoming her water phobia. Gary Craig, who observed this use of thought field therapy, simplified it into what we now know as EFT tapping. There are many different meridian points around our body, the most being in our ear. So rather than tapping upon all the different points, Gary Craig decided to simplify it into the points that we see today in EFT tapping. Gary Craig also went on to work with war veterans suffering from PTSD and bringing their stress unit of distress scale down so they were feeling less of the stress from the effects of being in a war zone. So a brief history about EFT tapping. What's the benefits of working with a certified EFT tapping practitioner one-on-one? You may have come across my EFT tapping videos on YouTube, and within that EFT tapping video, you may have resonated with certain points along the issue that I was tapping upon, but there might have been other points that we just didn't resonate. It just wasn't part of our experience. Working with an EFT tapping practitioner one-on-one, we want to take what was resonating for you and deal with that specifically to your experiences and any corresponding issues that are relating to that. So working with an EFT tapping practitioner one-on-one is working specifically and tailored towards your specific issues and experiences and reducing those. What does a typical EFT tapping session look like? Now, in EFT tapping, unlike talk therapy, we're merely addressing the issue that is causing you stress within your life. Now, there is talking involved, of course, to break down that issue a little bit more, and there might be many other things surrounding that issue that we want to tap upon. We also use a subjective unit of distress scale, with 10 being the most amount of stress that we're experiencing around an issue, and 0 being no stress at all. So we're trying to bring the distress scale down as close to 0, if not 0 at all. But sometimes in EFT tapping, as we work upon an emotional distress, sometimes the scale goes up before it goes down. So timelines with recovery is really dependent upon the person and their experience. And in the EFT tapping process, we merely tap upon the words that you have specified that are causing you issues. So it's really tailored towards you. The EFT tapping process starts with a setup statement, which starts with the side of the hand and our first meridian point, which is in the side of the hand. And it starts with identifying the issue. So even though I have this stressful issue, and ending with a positive affirmation, I still love and accept myself. And how I was trained, we do that 3 times. Even though I have the stressful issue, I still love and accept myself. I just say the words and you're repeating those words out loud. Then we move into the tapping point. So top of the head, I have the stressful issue. I really have the stressful issue. The stress within my life doesn't feel that great. It feels stressful. All this stress. I have so much stress. It doesn't feel good, this stress. I'd like to be free of this stress. If I could be free of this stress, my life would be stress-free. And that would be great. And I'd feel more emotional freedom in mind, body, and spirit. And then we'll end it with taking a deep breath in and out. So that would be known as the basic EFT tapping recipe. We identify the issue and we bring cognitive awareness to that issue whilst we tap upon the meridian lines and the points on those meridian lines. So we're creating emotional freedom whilst we're doing that. There are many different other techniques, such as the tearless trauma technique, the movie technique, the chasing the pain technique, the 9-gamut technique for when emotions become overwhelming and we want to bring our mind back in harmony. That working with a certified EFT tapping practitioner as myself, there are many different ways to address an issue and bring release to that issue. So how do we know that EFT tapping is working? Our body lets us know sometimes. So be it a video or a one-on-one session, you might be tapping and finding that you're yawning a bit. There might also be feelings of tiredness, washover, heaviness, tears released. You might be burping a bit or stomach grumbling as tension is starting to release. There might be tension releasing in the body or moving about in the body. And what is happening here? With EFT tapping, it's also known as a stress reduction tool. So we're reducing stress in the body by switching on the parasympathetic nerve, our rest and digest state. So when we're always stressed, we're always hypervigilant, we're always producing cortisol, we're tense, we're ready for the next fight or flight or freeze mode that we need to be activated into. EFT tapping works by interrupting that fear signal being sent between the amygdala and the hippocampus, where past memories of stressful situations are kept, how we operate. So EFT tapping works to down-regulate the stress response being sent between the amygdala and the hippocampus. So sometimes there are situations where we operate with a lot of hypervigilance, but due to EFT tapping, we've down-regulated that, and now we're operating with a bit more emotional freedom within that situation. And sometimes we don't even know whether we're operating in that. So EFT tapping might not get the attribution, but because we've actually down-regulated that nervous system, we're now operating with a more emotional freedom rather than emotional constriction within a situation. So how can I help you with EFT tapping? EFT tapping can be applied to any uncomfortable emotion, thought, or belief, and can be applied to any physical condition caused or increased by stress. It can also be used for phobias and cravings, or anything that creates stress within the mind and body. So I'll be using EFT tapping to down-regulate that stress within the body so we can experience a bit more freedom within our mind and body. If you're looking at taking upon EFT tapping, it's important to let your psychologist know, or any treating professionals, especially when there's medication involved, as EFT tapping will sometimes increase the effects of an emotional distress before it decreases. So if there's medication, it might be ineffective or non-effective. So it's always good to let your treating team know. Now, I am not a psychologist or any clinical professional, but I am a certified EFT tapping practitioner with years of experience, and also a 12-year mental health support worker dealing with a range of stressful conditions, and also have CPTSD. So I both have lived and applied practical experience with dealing with stress. If you're looking at dealing with stress and wanting to down-regulate that and create a bit more emotional freedom, then I can definitely help you with that. If you're looking at booking in with myself as an EFT tapping practitioner, then check out the informed consent under the new client section and fill that out, and that will help us identify in session and get the ball rolling. Once you're a new client, then feel free to use the existing client session booking after that. So that's how I can help with EFT tapping. I look forward to working with you one-on-one, and I'll see you in the next one.